Reports have come in of a recent unauthorized entry to the top secret base known as Area 51.
Howdy there, partners.
A person of unknown origin. The only name he would give us was...
I'm the doctor, by the way.
the Doctor.
Take me to your leader.
I've heard all kinds of things about that place. None of it's good.
Look out! Dreamland? Oh, I've always wanted to go there.
Doctor Who, Dreamland. From Saturday on Red Button. Another dimension of Doctor Who.
It's been about 2 years since I spoke about the 2009 Doctor Who specials, which went down really well with the fanbase. At the end of that video, I jokingly mentioned that I forgot to talk about Dreamland. Only, I did actually forget to include it, and I want to talk about it as I have fond memories of watching it when it originally premiered on this day 15 years ago. Dreamland is a CG animated special that released in the gap between The Waters of Mars and the first part of The End of Time. Rather than simply being presented like a typical episode, the story was divided into 6 serials. The first part's runtime clocking in at 12 minutes, the following 5 at 6 minutes. The overall length is 44 minutes long, which was the usual runtime of an episode back then. It was also shown via the Red Button. Remember that? I know it's still around, but I don't hear about it as much. Written by Phil Ford, Dreamland centres around the enigmatic Area 51 and the related 1947 Roswell incident. You've probably seen the episode if you're watching this, so I won't waste your time summarising the plot, and I'll just get into what I think. Many have given Dreamland a real hard time over the years. The primary target of detractors is the animation, which it ain't up to much, I shan't deny that. It can be a little stiff at times, maybe a little janky, but I'm not an animator, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. I think there might be a slight use of keyframe animation, which looks somewhat uncanny and unnatural, plus it can appear as though the characters are bolted to the floor and have super strength. I'm not sure what people were expecting from the animation here. Taking into consideration the time and budgetary constraints, it hasn't aged too badly. The studio responsible for the animation was Little Loud, a now defunct studio that specialised in game design and animation. Their website details that a small team had to create the entire project in-house, from storyboards to concept art and designing all the 3D models within a 6-month time frame. To meet the demanding schedule, we had to create around 6 minutes of footage, over 100 shots every 3 weeks. We had a small team of animators and compositors working at breakneck speed. The imminent death of the main character at Christmas meant the deadline was set in stone. Pipelines were devised to ensure that 3D render times were manageable, and to allow the team to pull the various elements of the project together. So, as I said earlier, when you take these production hurdles into consideration, it is a miracle that Dreamland's computer-generated animation isn't a visual catastrophe, and comparing it to recent attempts such as the Daleks series and the 3D animated reconstruction of the Celestial Toymaker, it looks incredible. It isn't remotely unwatchable. In fact, I think it looks quite cool, especially when it isn't in motion. The 3D model of the TARDIS interior looks beautiful. Shame we don't see much of it. The worst the animation gets is the occasional low-res texture that appears in the foreground, being most noticeable when they find themselves in the ghost town of Solitude. There's a lack of newly composed music from Murray Gold. This doesn't bother me though, as the use of pre-existing tracks are edited well, and it plays like a greatest hits album. The sound design and sound editing overall is great too. From doors and choppers to the twitching of the Viperock's mandibles, it's all on par with the quality you'd expect to see in a proper episode or a Big Finish drama. The voice cast is another highlight. David Tennant reprises his role as the 10th Doctor, and does a solid job considering he wasn't fond of ADR. His now wife Georgia Tennant plays the role of Cassie, a waitress at the local diner. Stuart Milligan plays Colonel Stark. Milligan would later go on to play Nixon in the Series 6 opener. We've also got Lisa Bowerman, best known for her role as Bernice Summerfield in the Big Finish audio dramas, and the late great David Warner. They both play a couple of the Alien characters. The pacing is breakneck, which is a blessing and a curse. It doesn't get a chance to effectively flesh out its cast, but it never gets boring. The lightning-fast pace is probably a result of the 44-minute episode being split up into 6 serials. The first act is likely the weakest of the story, the 10th Doctor making an obscene number of pop culture references which became mildly irritating.
I love 1958. No one's seen Die Hard, or Alien, or Die Hard 2, or Aliens, or Die Hard 3.
Doctor, are you sure there's a way out of here?
Of course there's a way out, there always is. Apart from in Star Wars, of course.
Hey,
There's also an abundance of plot contrivances. The sonic screwdriver is heavily relied upon to get the characters out of most of their predicaments. Why didn't Area 51 security take the screwdriver? At no point throughout the episode does anyone take the screwdriver off of the Doctor, and the military capture him twice. There's a definite overuse of the stupid thing in this story. The Houdini line is somewhat irritating too when he slips out of his bindings during the mind wipe scene. I'm sure the actual show has used this excuse before. Just seems like a lazy alternative to thinking up a marginally cleverer way for the Doctor to escape. It's like a get out of jail free card. Dreamland does provide a solid moral quandary, many shades of grey, pun intended, that conveys an overall message of peace. What Doctor Who does best. It does feel as though it's been dumbed down for a younger audience, like a baby's first ethical dilemma.
we've got to blow these monsters to hell.
This weapon will destroy the Viperox, not just on Earth, but across the universe. No one has the right to destroy an entire species.
Doctor, they destroyed my town.
Bitch, are you for real?
The episode was later shown on CBBC, and I assume the fact that it's animated means it was targeted towards children rather than the older fans. So maybe that's why some of the writing can come off as somewhat jejune. Dreamland is a lot of fun. Imperfect, sure, the aforementioned plot contrivances and ludicrous amount of pop culture references in the first act was somewhat baffling, but they make proper use of the animated medium, doing something the live-action program wouldn't be able to do. The bombastic action set pieces and exotic alien designs make this feel like a deluxe episode. The whole Area 51 mythology is explored rather well, flying saucers and grey aliens, the 1950s setting and the Men in Black. Phil Ford went all out. I think this all validates Dreamland's existence. If you go into this expecting top-of-the-line animation and a deep narrative, you'll find yourself out of luck. I personally think the primitive animation gives it a certain charm though. I don't think Little Loud got the credit they deserved for their work here. It sounds to me like they put a lot of effort into Dreamland and people only refer to the episode as an abomination and one of the worst stories of the modern era. That simply isn't true. I'm not even going to dignify that opinion with a response. With all that said, the Infinite Quest is probably better. That's something I haven't seen in well over a decade, but I reckon the 2D animation there has aged a bit more gracefully than Dreamland's 3D stuff. Interestingly, the flying saucer also made an appearance in the first episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures 3rd series. I can only assume that this was written around the same time as Dreamland, also being written by Phil Ford as he was head writer for that series. The episode came out over a month before Dreamland premiered, so that's a nice bit of world building when you think about it. The Alliance of Shades seen in Dreamland would too be featured in the 4th series of the Sarah Jane Adventures, also in an episode penned by Phil Ford, where I reckon they were handled better in. I was still a young child when Dreamland released. I remember the trailer coming on whilst me and my mum were watching something. When it finished, I looked at her with what I can only imagine to be one of the most excited expressions I've ever worn. Animated Doctor Who! I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like I needed to see the trailer again because I didn't believe it actually happened. Back then, I was still a moderate fan of the 3D Clone Wars, almost purely because I liked the novelty of an animated Star Wars series on Cartoon Network, less because I actually liked the show. So this was sort of a dream come true for me. It was made even more exhilarating because it was 2009. There was a drought of Doctor Who episodes that year due to the specials, so it was nice to have more Doctor Who to look forward to. I am always going to have a fondness for Dreamland. I vividly remember pressing the red button and the first part coming on, and I remember watching the second part at my grandpa's grandma's house the next day. I miss enjoying Doctor Who like that, where I was nothing but excited. No sense of dread or expecting to be disappointed. Maybe that's just a me problem. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. I still love Dreamland. Perhaps it's nostalgia, but it still holds up for the most part. My adult brain hasn't ruined it for me. Dreamland has been released on Blu-ray as part of a bonus disc included with the costly Steelbook re-release of the 2009 specials. It got its own standalone Blu-ray release in Germany as part of a double feature collection with the Infinite Quest. It was included in an animated collection of Doctor Who stories and a DVD that only released in America as well. Neither are the most affordable. It really irritates me not owning this. I have everything else from the first RTD era on Blu-ray, the only outliers being these animated episodes. I hope someone at the BBC considers giving this a standalone Blu-ray release here in the UK at some point in the near future. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think of Dreamland in the comments. Or don't. I don't care. Bye bye.
Howdy there, partners.